Where are you from? I imagine your answer to that question would change depending on how far away you are from home. During a casual conversation with someone you just met locally, you might just answer, here. If you're only a stone's throw away from home, you'd probably just offer the name of the town or city under the assumption that the other person would know where it is. And if you find yourself across an international or continental border, you might just zoom out and simply offer the name of your country. But what if you went even farther than that? Hello, and welcome, my freshwater friends, to episode 37 of the About the Water podcast, an exploration of high strangeness on and around the Great Lakes. Today we set off from Michigan's Cheneaux Islands, northwestern Lake Huron, and paddle west, we think, as strange currents try to veer us off course while we make our way about the water. Episode 37, Paddling Back. Cheneaux? Ryan asked. His best friend, Jesse, raised an eyebrow. Chex Mix? I got trail mix. There's probably some checks in there. Ryan flipped the map right side up. Or is it Cheneaux? Jess, now realizing to what he was referring, rolled her eyes. No, you were right the first time. Welcome to the Lay's Chex Mix Islands, Ryan. Jess launched the tandem kayak and tossed in the paddles as her hopeless co-pilot made another futile attempt at Lake Huronese French. Lay Cheneaux.
No!
No what?
Lay Cheneaux.
Oh.
We got 3 miles. Let's go.
Jess and Ryan's shared love for the serenity of paddling the Great Lakes held their international best friendship together, as did their commitment to take a weekend journey to a new paddling location once a year. They had spent 51 long weeks waiting for this very weekend to arrive. The plan was simple. Meet at a rental cabin in Patrick's Landing, Michigan, near Cedarville, Michigan, and call it home for 2 days. Day 1, ease in. Paddle the 3-mile trip to the harbor town of Hessel, grab a bite to eat, maybe a couple drinks, and then paddle back. On day 2, if everything went well, go deeper into the Cheneaux Islands. From there, Jess would go back to her home in London, Ontario, and Ryan would set off back to his home of Sheboygan, Wisconsin. There, they would spend another year hoping that the summer weather they would get for their next trip would be just like it was today. The air was cool, but not cold. The summer breeze was head-on, but not intense enough to cause any difficulty or rough waters. A perfect Lake Huron summer day. The truly inconceivable size and might of Lake Huron lay on their port side, separated from the duo and their 2-person Crescent Crew kayak by Marquette Island, the largest in the Cheneaux Islands chain. As tempting as it was to go explore, the half-mile-wide Hessel Bay was open water enough for them both. Ryan inhaled deeply. With a huge smile, he leaned forward and patted his friend on the back.
I could do this all day,
he said. And we're here, Jess replied. A short time later, the two had pulled their boat out of the water, eagerly looking forward to some grub at the nearby bar. Jess removed a bike chain from a locking, waterproof bag and secured the kayak and the bag to a small tree by the boat launch. Ryan took a look around. Not much going on here in Hessel, Michigan, huh? Love it. Jess had missed his remark. She found herself locked in the gaze of an angry-looking older man, sitting on a front porch directly across the street. He hadn't taken his eyes off her since they pulled the kayak from the water, and his soured expression said anything except, "Welcome to Hessel." Ryan noticed the staring contest and tapped Jess on the shoulder. "Hey, come on, let's go get some food." The pair set off on foot, with the intimidating eyes of the old man never once glancing away from them. The town was pleasant and relaxed. The marina was undoubtedly the centerpiece, giving the entire place a maritime feel. The main road headed north and south, lined by just a few mom-and-pop businesses. The cool breeze off Lake Huron made the summer heat more than manageable, and the wafting smell of nearby burgers made for a quick pace. In less than 5 minutes, the pair had entered the only bar in town. It was early enough in the day that only a few small tables were occupied.
"Welcome. Just grab a seat anywhere, okay?"
A friendly voice echoed from the kitchen. Ryan and Jess decided to sit at the bar, admiring the motif as they went. The bar had a sort of Art Deco, gastro speakeasy kind of theme, with old advertisements for Duesenberg automobiles and framed posters promoting the latest Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton films. The whites and grays and dark blues and gold trim throughout blended seamlessly with the ads for spirits with names that neither could pronounce. Ryan and Jess's wandering attention was suddenly shattered by the sound of a glass breaking. As they looked towards the source, they saw a young woman wearing a bartender's apron, standing frozen in the kitchen doorway. The pint glass she just dropped was resting in pieces at her feet. Her mouth was agape in apparent disbelief as she stared at the two.
"Oh, no way. I am not doing this crap again. No way.
She said angrily as she stomped back into the kitchen.
You are not going to believe who's out there. Can you believe this?
Her muffled voice could then be heard complaining about something.
I am not doing this, man. I'm not doing this.
"What did we do?" Ryan asked. "Shh," Jess shushed him, leaning over to whisper. "That couple by the front door hasn't taken their eyes off us since we came in. Same with that guy by the pool table." Ryan laughed and shrugged his shoulders. "So what?" he said. "They're regulars, we're not. Small town." He opened a menu and pointed inside. "Look, the burger's $17. I don't think this is exactly a get-your-ass-kicked kind of biker bar." Jess gasped, "Ryan," as she grabbed his hand. Ryan looked up to see that a large man wearing greasy chef's whites was now glaring at them from the kitchen door, arms folded, with a large meat cleaver in one hand. "Let's go, Ryan, let's just go." Before Ryan could agree, which he had fully intended to do, Jess yanked his arm, come on, and began to drag him towards the front door, which was now being blocked by a uniformed police officer.
"All right. It has been 3 days of this crap. You guys had better have the money to pay these nice people this time," the officer said. "ID, now."
Ryan immediately fished out his wallet from his back pocket and just handed the entire thing to the officer. The officer rolled his eyes as he removed Ryan's ID and the cash inside. He examined them, with his annoyance on full display as he waved one of the $20 bills. "And what exactly is this?" Ryan and Jess exchanged confused glances before watching the officer then inspect Ryan's driver's license. "Heh," the officer said, unamused. He aggressively flung the ID at Ryan and tossed his wallet and the couple $100 inside on the floor. The officer then diverted his gaze to Jess. "And let me guess, miss, you came here from the United States?" Jess shook her head nervously. No, sir, Canada. I have a passport." The officer opened his arms wide and addressed the entire room. "Canada! On behalf of all of us, let me be the first to welcome you to Berman. Now listen, you're not under arrest yet, but I can assure you, coming with me is going to go a whole lot better for you than staying here with Jack over there." The officer motioned over towards the cook, still waiting in the kitchen doorway, who gave the pair a threatening nod assuring them that the officer was in fact correct. Less than a minute later, Ryan and Jess found themselves sitting in back of a small Volvo police SUV. On the side, in large red letters over a white paint job, was the logo HMG, Berman. No handcuffs were used, and no formal arrest had been made. The officer drove the vehicle north along the main road, then turning left onto the empty two-lane highway, away from Patrick's Landing. "It's nice to finally meet," he said, seemingly sincerely. "Now, off the record, really, where are you two from? What are you doing in Berman?" Jess and Ryan looked at each other, Ryan shrugging his shoulders, indicating he didn't know how to answer. Jess stammered out a reply. We kayaked from Patrick's Landing." "You mean Pat's Harbor," the officer said, sarcastically. "Do your research, you two, okay? You're not fooling anyone, not with the IDs, not with the money. You're not fooling anyone." After a brief moment of very awkward silence, Ryan decided to try his hand and said, "Sir, we were looking for Hessel. Sounds like we missed." The officer slammed hard on the brakes, pulling the vehicle over to the side of the road. He then turned around and ripped the sunglasses off his face and drew his service revolver. "All right, just what in the hell are you two? Where are you from?" Ryan and Jess froze, searching for words. We're just confused, sir," Ryan explained. "I think we came to the wrong place and we're just trying to get back to our cabin." The officer wouldn't have it. "You're not fooling anyone. You two stay away from Berman. You go back to wherever you came from and you stay there. And if you ever come back..." The officer drew the hammer back. "Get out." The two jumped out of the vehicle as fast as they could, as the officer sped off, with both back doors still open. Fearful of walking past town again, and not recognizing any of the road names, Ryan and Jess made the unconscious and silent agreement to just keep walking west, away from Patrick's Landing. With every mosquito in the surrounding and unending evergreen forests hot on their trail, Jess asked him what on earth they were going to do. Ryan checked his mobile. There wasn't enough service for a call. "I mean, I guess we just have to keep walking this way. If that guy sees us again, I don't know what's gonna..." Ryan's search for a plan was interrupted by a distant horn as a delivery truck approached in front of them. The driver leaned and shouted out the window, "You guys all right?" Unsure as to what to say to be safe, Jess played dumb. "Yeah, we just went for a walk and got lost. We're staying in Pat's Harbor." The driver shook his head. You mean Patrick's Landing? Over there by Cedarville?" Jess gave the driver a relieved nod. "Hey, no problem," he replied. "Hop on in. I'm actually headed that way next." The two did, and thanked the driver, who then unexpectedly turned south to Berman. Jess grabbed the door handle, frantically asking the driver, "I don't know, where are you going?" The driver looked over at the two. Whoa, relax," he replied. "I have a delivery here in Hessel. It'll take me 3 minutes, and then I'll get you to Patrick's Landing, okay?" The delivery took 3 minutes, as promised, almost to the second. Just enough time for Ryan and Jess to unchain the kayak from the tree, run it down the boat ramp, and hop on board. Ryan took a brief moment to look back over his shoulder, observing the delivery driver, who was quite literally scratching his head in confusion as he watched them float away. Jess insisted, politely, "Row, damn it, row!" Ryan did. In record time, they had made the 3-mile journey back to Patrick's Landing, arriving safely. Both of them, terrified and absolutely exhausted from giving it everything they had. paddling back. I'd like to thank, formally and publicly, the 11 members of the Berman, Michigan Yacht Club who shared this story with us. And before you head online to research membership fees, I'll save you the trouble. There isn't a Berman, Michigan Yacht Club, because there isn't a Berman, Michigan. Which is exactly why I couldn't help but ask the group of Sheboygan, Wisconsin kayakers about the logo on their shirts as they paddled alongside the South Pier. They explained that their garments were custom-made in honor of their friend Ryan, who had just moved to London, Ontario to marry his best friend, Jess. One of the paddlers explained that the Berman, Michigan Yacht Club logo was there because of a weird story. When I explained that weird is exactly my cup of tea, they surprisingly eagerly paddled back to the beach, where all 11 of them shared the tale you just heard. In terms of analyzing what happened for a possible explanation, they were way ahead of me, posing and answering their own questions as they went, which are as follows. Question 1. Are Ryan and Jess certain, absolutely certain, that they paddled to Hessel? Or at least the location that should have been Hessel? The answer is yes, without a doubt. The town was laid out exactly how Hessel is. While the bar's motif doesn't match any of the current or former renditions of the town's Islander bar, the floor plan described was identical. And when the delivery truck took them to Hessel, even though the buildings and the layout of the marina itself was different, their kayak was there. And, navigationally speaking, Hessel is the only town west of Patrick's Landing that Jess and Ryan could have kayaked to without a very long and very significant stretch of open Lake Huron water, far beyond their ability and comfort zone. Question 2. Did Ryan and Jess briefly travel back in time? Well, good assumption on your part, if you happened to make note of the bar's Art Deco interior, and if you happened to find the officer carrying a revolver as a sidearm a bit old-fashioned. But no. Both Jess and Ryan remembered seeing electronic dartboards near the pool table, as well as a glowing tablet-based point-of-sale system at the cash register station. Plus, the town of Hessel has had its name since somewhere around the year 1887 and has never gone by the name of Berman, Michigan. No town has. Question 3. Did Ryan and Jess make the entire story up in order to distract their friends from realizing that kayaking was just a front for their bodice-ripping torrid weekends of international romance? No. Their friends had assured me that they were quite upfront about their fondness for one another, and as eager as the 11 members of the yacht club were to pass along the very graphic details of Ryan and Jess's nocturnal musings, I have chosen to omit them here, respectfully. Ryan and Jess were, however, reportedly very reluctant to share any details about their experience in Berman, at least at first, even with their closest friends. Question 4. And maybe you find yourself as fixated on this detail as I. What did the abbreviation HMG mean on the side of the police vehicle? Well, here are some common uses. Hazardous Material Group. Kind of intriguing. It does sound like the officer could have been hinting that he thought Jess and Ryan were extraterrestrials, which very well could involve such a vehicle. But not a small SUV. Hazmat vehicles are generally very large and contain things like remote communications equipment, portable laboratories, and lots of specialized gear. The officer and his vehicle had none of that. HMG has also been used to indicate the presence of a heavy machine gun, the kind you would see mounted on top of a Humvee. But that doesn't really fit in this case, because, with all due respect, come on, It was a Volvo. The one meaning behind HMG that really catches our interest is his or her Majesty's government. If Jess and Ryan temporarily and inadvertently visited a version of Hessel in which Michigan or the United States didn't exist, it could actually explain that acronym. Perhaps their version of Hessel just involved a country that stayed under British rule. That would explain the officer's mockery of Ryan being from the United States, and then the following mockery of Jess claiming to be from Canada. This could also be why the officer looked at Ryan's legal tender as if it were monopoly money. So what we're left with is the consensus among the 11 members of the Berman, Michigan Yacht Club. A consensus that says that the two paddled beyond the typical X and Y axes along which a kayak normally travels. What Jess and Ryan personally find most unnerving, reportedly, was that based on the staff's reaction to seeing them, the officer's insistence that Jess and Ryan pay the bar this time, they can only assume that this wasn't their first and only trip to Berman, Michigan. In either case, congrats to both Ryan and Jess on their new life together. Here's hoping that it's the ferocious romantic passion, unmatchable even by 1,000 Great Lakes November gales, keeping them both up at night, and not the haunting memory that replays itself each time they're asked, "Where you from?" And with that, thank you, sincerely, for listening. Wherever your journeys by land, or by lake, or by love take you, may the stories they tell about you be as grand, beautiful, and enduring as our Great Lakes. I'll see you about the water.